guys. Today I'm going to look back on the last year I've spent remodeling this 1983 Coachman travel trailer, and I'm going to talk about 10 lessons learned during that remodel. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we?
Number 10. Now I should tell you guys, this list is not in an order of ranking, although I did try to save some of the more interesting lessons I've learned near the end. But this is no way, shape, or form a reflection of the hierarchy of some of the lessons I've learned throughout. But I'm going to start with a fairly small one. You probably could have guessed going in, but I really learned the value of Amazon during this camper remodel. Here in Central Illinois, there's not tons and tons of places to buy RV parts, RV replacement things, remodeling replacement things. I mean, we certainly do have, lumber yards and hardware stores. I was able to get some things there, but I couldn't have done this job without going to Amazon. Whether it be the, sticky tape, reflective tape to put on the camper, or just screw cover stuff, the AC shroud, the water pump I put in it, the tile stickers, which probably 70%, 75% of the stuff I bought for this camper for the remodel came from Amazon. And I don't know where I would have been without it.
Number 9 on my list of lessons learned would be wasps. Anywhere that had a hole that wasps can get into with this camper, they probably did. I think part of that's before I ever got it. I don't know if that's when it's at the campgrounds. I don't know if that's when it's in your driveway or wherever you're storing it. But wasps seem to be attracted and wreak havoc. Right here, if you followed along last winter, getting my heater working, which was an adventure. I had never worked on a propane heater before. But my problem was because the mud dauber type wasps had actually flown all the way up inside there and got to the blower fan and built one of those mud nests. And that fan, every time the heater would kick on, it would try to kick on, but the fan wouldn't go, and so the safety mechanism would just shut it off. So I ended up taking the whole thing apart, and really that's how I fixed my problem, was breaking that up and cleaning up the internal parts, getting rid of that nest, and then the heater worked great afterwards. Of course, that to me looks like a problem for sure. And I had all kinds of areas on here, whether it be the kitchen exhaust, whatever. Pretty much anywhere that a wasp could get to, they were trying to get to. So that was one thing I learned that I hadn't realized was going to possibly happen. Number 8 on my list was it was extremely important to try and keep things lightweight. Sometimes the most durable, the most sturdy option isn't the best option. Remember, with a travel trailer, you're pulling it down the road. Me personally, with the vehicle I have to tow, and once you load up all your camping gear and everything else, I don't have a ton of extra towing capacity available to me. So I had to really do my best to not add any weight to this thing. So sometimes your best options are things such as a stick-on wallpaper for your shower area, which adds almost no weight at all. And, nice camping gear, camping shower heads, etc., rather than going to the store, because let me tell you, this thing, I feel like it looks pretty nice, and it weighs nothing. So while you might get one that's going to last you longer from Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever, if you got 2 or 3 pounds for that, 2 or 3 pounds for something else, it's going to get out of hand pretty quick. So you really need to try to conserve your weight wherever you can. Number 7 on my list was the value in regrouping when I needed to redo something. There were multiple times with this camper remodel, and unless you're really, really good, but if you're like me and it's your first time remodeling a camper or doing anything of this magnitude or scale, there are things you're going to do. You're going to come in here and you're going to fix something, and it's not going to be good enough the first time. And I learned the value in when I got into that, and when I got deep into a project and I just wasn't getting it sorted out, that sometimes there was some great value in stopping, regrouping, coming back to it maybe a week later, and just getting a good plan and being prepared. One of the examples I'm giving you, and that's why I got this door open here, one of the very first projects I did on this camper was replace that water pump, because if you remember, the original one ran continually. When it was pressurized, it wouldn't shut off, so you had to pretty much just turn it on to manually use it and then turn it back off. It didn't regulate. And we fixed a few leaks in some water lines, but we had kind of band-aid fixes. We cut the lines, we put some quick connects on there and added extensions everywhere, and I don't know how many extensions we had throughout this thing. I knew it wasn't good enough. I don't think I came back to it for, I think it was 5 or 6 months. I said, hey, it's not leaking for now, but I need to regroup and get a plan. And I went into it before this year. It was late in the winter this previous year, and I actually bought one of the cinch connecting tools. I go like that. It's not scissors, but whatever. and all the hardware for it. I had PEX, and I mapped out the entire system, put joints in, put elbows in, and really planned it out. I think the plumbing is 10 times better now than it was, but there was value, at least for me, in not trying to just come back and do it the next day. Because if you're anything like me, when you're doing something you're not an expert at, and it's kind of becoming challenging, you get more and more frustrated. You start cutting more and more corners, get sloppier. And there's just a lot of value in coming into it with a good plan and stepping away and taking a breath. That's going to lead me into my next one, number 6. Number 6 has to do with the brakes on this travel trailer. If you know already, travel trailers, along with heavier cargo trailers, have electronic brakes. There's a magnetic system in here. The cables are not pressurized cables or nothing like that. It's just wiring, electric wiring. It sends a signal and a magnet grabs on. I'm doing a horrible job of describing that for you. So the wiring for it is literally just wiring. It's just that. And my brakes weren't working. In fact, I kept blowing fuses on this thing. And I tried for the course of probably 6 months to troubleshoot that problem. I replaced the front plug twice because I thought my issue was there. I replaced the breakaway emergency pin, which needed done anyways, but I thought that might help me out. I replaced the brakes themselves. That cost me like $230, $240, I believe. I'm not disappointed it's done, but I don't think it was necessary because I'm very sure at the end of the day that wasn't my problem. What I'm getting to with this one is, true story, I had a coworker of mine who heard me talking about it and told me from the get-go, pull all the wiring, just rewire the whole thing from scratch. Rewire externally, you know, run it from the plug underneath your camper, put it in a safe spot, and brand new wiring to each tire. I should have taken his advice. I ended up taking this to a trailer specialty store. They worked on it. In fact, they gave it back to me on 2 separate occasions thinking the problem was solved, and I didn't get back home before I blew another fuse. Finally, in the end, that guy got underneath there, he jacked it up, ripped out the wiring that was underneath there. A little frustrated, I could tell he was, but he also wanted me to be happy. And he wanted to solve the problem, and he kept thinking he had it fixed and sorted out. Finally, he just pulled all that wiring out, rewired the whole thing. He took about 30 minutes to do that. Of course, he's an expert at it, not me. But it may have taken me longer. But once he rewired it underneath here, never had a problem since. So probably should have taken that guy's advice and just rewired it from the beginning instead of chasing the problem. Number 5 may be the culprit of my biggest lesson learned, and in that, my biggest mistake with this camper. Painting the exterior. I tried to get by being cheap and easy and lazy and paint straight onto the body as it was. I did pressure wash it. I did not scuff it up. I didn't buff it up. And I didn't prime it externally. And where I used tape, I used painter's tape to get this, what I feel is a pretty decent design. Like, I think I got a pretty good paint job going on here. And as soon as I pulled it off, that paint was just peeling cleanly straight off of the old color that was on the camper. So in some areas, and that's why we're standing right here right now, you wouldn't know it, but this is one of the areas where the paint peeled clean off, and I have from there scuffed that up, used some etching primer, and then repainted it, and you can't really tell for now. And the camper looks good, but I'm not positive that the rest of this is good to go for a long haul, you know. I actually am prepared that next year I may have to repaint this whole camper. So temporarily, I fixed my issue. I fixed the mistakes that were visible at the time, but I think I've got an ongoing further down the road problem, and I will never try to paint a camper again without taking the proper steps and scuffing it up and buffing it out, and then using some etching primer to bond to. Number 4 on my lessons learned list for the camper remodel. One of the easiest and most noticeable, cheapest improvements to be made are LED lights. These lights were not very expensive at all. I don't remember, but again, going back to number 10 on Amazon, I want to say, I'm throwing a number out here, but let's just say they were each like $8, $9. They were not expensive. Maybe they were, let's say they were even $15. Still not bad. 2 wires for each of them, and you're just talking a wire nut and some electrical tape and some screws to screw them back in. And one, it makes the camper look 10 times better. But two, for actual usage, for the practicality purpose, let me tell you, when you're out in the middle of a campground at night and it's pretty dark out there, you step into your camper, you have these LED lights versus the old 80s halogens that were in here that are kind of yellowish. It's going to feel a lot brighter. For me, at least, it's much more comfortable in here at nighttime when I'm actually using this camper. Number 3. You might be wondering why I'm sitting here in front of the toilet. Number 3 is to try to find alternatives. Remodeling a camper can be a very expensive job. And I learned that sometimes by digging into something and trying to fix it, you create a bigger problem than you originally had. This toilet worked fine from the get-go. This toilet has always worked since I got this camper. And new ones, they're not super cheap, $100, $150. And there's always the potential of creating an issue with the gasket and sealing it, and it, you know, just being a proper toilet and not having any leaks or anything. This one doesn't leak. It's perfect. It just was ugly. It was this really ugly yellow color, this 80s. This is dirty right now. Sorry for that. But this is just ugly 1980s yellow. I don't know why they wanted to use that color for things. And so I bought a can, I think a quart, of appliance epoxy. I used it on both the toilet and the bathtub. That bathtub would have been a big issue to replace and pull out. I don't know that I could find a bathtub exactly like that one that's white anyways. So the appliance epoxy has been a nice alternative. There was just a little quick, simple, one afternoon job. Really improved the looks of this camper. Didn't cause us any problems. Now, my number 2 lesson learned is another big one for me. And this is a personal preference lesson. Maybe it's not the case for you. I went with a lock-in, tongue and groove, vinyl plank flooring. It's what I like using at home. I know they're water resistant. I know they're flexible and good to work with. And I really like the look of them. I thought it's a great upgrade. However, my lesson that I've learned is to put my pride and my ego, check it at the door. If I were to ever remodel a camper, I would use stick-on. Now, why would I use the stick-on flooring? Because in the end, it looks just as good. Only you know it's stick-on. I almost feel like you're doing some cheap cop-out type of project. But if you've done this type of flooring that I did do in here before, you know that when you're getting started, when you're around corners, when you're in transition rooms, that's where it's a difficult job. And that's the entire camper. I did 10% of the work for probably 75% of the time. It took forever to get some of these cuts, some of these edges, this area around here dealt with. In the middle, where it's like, oh, we can just lock in a piece and move on. That was done in 3, 4, 5 minutes. And it's like, oh, well, cool. I got the main body of the camper done and we're back to cutting pieces and difficult pieces. And getting this piece in on this corner and locking it in and then locking a piece in on the lengthwise and getting everything to sit perfectly and then transitioning back to over here. It became rather difficult. The job would have been much easier if you're cutting and you're just putting down a stick-on tile. And if any of this gets damaged, it's a lot harder to replace a plank in here. With a stick-on tile, I could just literally pull up one, put a brand new one down and replace it. I'm down here. I don't know if you can see. I had a transition issue here. That's just one of the issues I had when I was working around this stuff. I cleaned it up with some like wood filler, some stained wood filler and whatnot. And it's not super noticeable, but I know about it. And yeah, the stick-on tile would have just been so much easier to deal with. So now, what's the big number 1 lesson learned? I'm sure this is what you guys have been waiting for the whole time. My number 1 lesson. It's a little bit of a hokey one, but it's that I could do it. I can remodel a camper, and so could you. That sounds corny, but let me tell you, I never owned a camper before this one. Didn't know anything about them. There are so many lessons with camping that are common everyday culture. Did you guys know that there's a thing called Poop Mountain? Look it up. If you have a camper, it's no mystery to you, but I never heard of Poop Mountain until I owned one. So anyways, the point being is, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm no expert. I don't know campers, but every single project over the last year that I had to do on this, I would spend some time researching. I would go to YouTube. I would find other people that have done it before me. I would read stuff online, read blogs, vlogs, you know, all that good stuff. And it's not a perfect remodel, but I'm very proud of the work I've done. I think I've done a pretty decent job, and you guys are absolutely capable of doing it. So a project of this size, don't be intimidated by the size of it. Don't look at it as in a hole. Stop yourselves, take one day at a time, one project at a time, and then just fix one thing, figure out what needs to come next, and just keep moving forward. And I'm sure you'll be able to get her done. So that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys appreciate this video. I hope I helped you out a little bit if you're going to be remodeling a camper, and maybe gave you some things to think about before you get in there. Enjoy, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.